Europe and Asia don't just meet here. They collide, culturally, politically, historically, and that collision reshaped the course of civilization. In this documentary, we'll uncover the powerful forces behind that clash before traveling across the most extraordinary places born from it. But to understand it, we have to go back to the beginning. If we go back to the beginning, we don't go back a few centuries or even a few millennia. We go back nearly 12,000 years to a time when most of Europe was still covered in dense forests and human societies were only beginning to experiment with permanent settlements. And it was here, on this land between continents, that something extraordinary happened. In southeastern Anatolia, archaeologists uncovered monumental stone structures dating to around 9,600 BC, nearly 11,600 years ago. That makes them roughly 6,000 years older than the pyramids of Egypt. The scale alone is difficult to comprehend. Massive carved pillars arranged in circular formations, some weighing between 10 and 15 tons, about as heavy as a modern city bus, erected by people who had not yet developed metal tools, pottery, or writing. Which forces historians to reconsider something fundamental. Perhaps complex belief systems and large-scale cooperation did not emerge after agriculture, but may have actually helped create it. And that idea alone changes the timeline of civilization. Geography explains why this region became so influential. Turkey occupies roughly 783,000 square kilometers, about 302,000 square miles, a territory slightly larger than Texas. But its importance is not just about size. It controls one of the narrowest and most strategic maritime corridors in the world, where at certain points the waterway connecting the Black Sea and the Mediterranean narrows to less than 700 meters, under half a mile. For thousands of years, whoever controlled that passage influenced trade between Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Grain, silk, spices, precious metals, entire economies depended on safe access through this corridor. And wealth has always attracted ambition. Over the last 3 millennia, this region witnessed the rise and fall of successive empires: Hittite, Persian, Greek, Roman, Byzantine, Seljuk, Ottoman, each layering new systems of governance, architecture, religion, and identity over what came before. At its peak, the Ottoman Empire alone governed more than 5 million square kilometers, nearly 2 million square miles, across 3 continents. Few modern nations can trace their political heritage to such expansive global influence. But geography here is not just strategic, it is volatile. Turkey lies along two major tectonic fault systems. The North Anatolian Fault stretches more than 1,200 kilometers, nearly 750 miles, across the country, and has produced earthquakes powerful enough to shift entire urban districts several meters within seconds. Over centuries, cities have been destroyed, rebuilt, and reshaped again and again. Resilience is not simply cultural pride here. It has been survival. The physical landscape mirrors this tension. Nearly 90% of the country lies above 500 meters in elevation, around 1,640 feet, creating a terrain of high plateaus, mountain ranges, and volcanic formations rather than wide flat plains. In the eastern regions, peaks rise above 4,000 meters, more than 13,000 feet. While coastal areas along the Mediterranean can experience summer temperatures exceeding 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. At the same time, winter temperatures in the east can fall below minus 30 degrees Celsius, about minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Few countries compress that level of climate diversity within a single border. And that diversity shapes society in ways that are still visible today. The country is home to dozens of dialect groups and multiple ethnic communities, including Turks, Kurds, Laz, Arabs, and Armenians, each contributing traditions layered over thousands of years of interaction. Even everyday habits reflect this deep historical blending. Coffee culture flourished here as early as the 16th century, and Ottoman coffee houses became social hubs so influential that, at times, rulers attempted to ban them out of fear that political dissent was spreading through conversation over small porcelain cups. Even tulips, now globally associated with the Netherlands, were cultivated and celebrated in Ottoman lands centuries earlier, so intensely that an entire period became known as the Tulip Era, when elite society treated the flower as a symbol of refinement and status. Cultural transformation has also happened very quickly. In 1928, the nation shifted from Arabic script to a modified Latin alphabet in a sweeping reform that redefined literacy within a generation. Imagine an entire society relearning how to read and write almost overnight. But beneath politics, beneath reform, beneath empire, there is one constant: geology. This land was shaped by volcanic eruptions, tectonic pressure, erosion, and time. Soft volcanic rock formed across central Anatolia, hardened lava flows layered over sediment, and wind gradually sculpted formations that seem almost artificial in their precision. If Europe and Asia collide here culturally, they also collide geologically. And that geological tension created landscapes so unusual that humans didn't just build on top of them, they carved into them. Entire communities once adapted to rock itself, hollowing spaces for shelter, worship, and survival. To truly understand how that happened and why, we need to begin in a place where stone and human ingenuity merged in a way found almost nowhere else on Earth. And that is where our journey begins. At first glance, it doesn't even look real. Cappadocia is a landscape shaped by volcanic eruptions that began millions of years ago when nearby mountains covered the region in thick layers of ash. Over time, that ash hardened into soft rock called tuff. Wind and rain then carved it into tall, cone-shaped formations, now known as fairy chimneys. Some of them rise more than 40 meters high, about 130 feet. But the real surprise is not the rock itself. It's what people did with it. Because this stone was soft enough to carve, entire communities hollowed it out. Homes, churches, storage rooms, even underground cities descending more than 60 meters, nearly 200 feet below the surface. Some of these underground networks could shelter thousands of people at once, complete with ventilation shafts and heavy circular stone doors designed to seal off tunnels during invasions. And above ground, the walls of rock-cut churches still preserve frescoes painted more than 1,000 years ago. Today, hundreds of hot air balloons rise over the valleys at sunrise, drifting above a landscape that once protected entire civilizations. But this is only one chapter of Anatolia's story, because further southeast, on a remote mountain summit, something far older waits in silence, watching the horizon as it has for more than 2,000 years. At 2,134 meters, about 7,000 feet, above sea level, a remote mountain summit holds one of the strangest royal tombs in the world. In the 1st century BC, King Antiochus I of Commagene ordered the construction of a massive funerary complex at the top of this mountain. He believed he was descended from both Persian and Greek gods, and he wanted the world to remember it. So he built statues nearly 9 meters tall, about 30 feet, representing himself alongside deities like Zeus and Apollo. Today, Their stone heads sit scattered across the summit, some weighing several tons, their faces cracked by centuries of harsh winters and snow. But the desire to build something monumental in this land did not begin with kings. It began thousands of years earlier, long before metal tools, long before written language. Long before cities, before farming villages, before the wheel, people gathered here. Göbekli Tepe dates back to around 9,600 BC, making it over 11,000 years old. That's about 6,000 years older than Stonehenge and the pyramids. The site consists of massive circular enclosures built from limestone pillars, some weighing up to 15 tons, roughly as heavy as a large truck. And yet the people who built it were still hunter-gatherers. The pillars are carved with detailed reliefs of animals, foxes, snakes, wild boars, vultures, suggesting symbolic or ritual meaning. There are no signs of permanent houses at the site, which leads archaeologists to believe it functioned as a gathering place for ceremonies. But not far from here, another city would rise from stone, this time built not underground or in isolation, but cascading down a hillside in layers of honey-colored walls. And that is where we go next. From a distance, it looks like it's growing out of the rock itself. Mardin is built on a steep hillside overlooking the Mesopotamian plains, its honey-colored stone houses stacked in layers that follow the natural slope. The buildings are constructed from local limestone, which glows golden in the afternoon sun and has been used here for centuries because it's easy to carve yet durable in the dry climate. What makes this city remarkable isn't just its appearance, it's the mix of cultures that shaped it. For hundreds of years, Arabs, Kurds, Turks, and Syriac Christians lived side by side here. Ancient monasteries still operate within the city, and in some neighborhoods, the call to prayer from a mosque overlaps with church bells. Many houses feature interior courtyards designed to provide privacy and shade during summer, when temperatures can exceed 40 degrees Celsius, more than 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And from the upper terraces, the view stretches across the plains for dozens of kilometers, nearly 30 miles, toward modern-day Syria. But further east, the land rises sharply, and one peak dominates the horizon, higher than anything around it. Mount Ararat rises 5,137 meters, about 16,854 feet, making it the highest peak in Turkey. Its snow-covered summit is visible from great distances, especially at sunrise when the light turns the glacier pink. This is a dormant stratovolcano formed by layers of hardened lava and ash. Its last recorded eruption occurred in 1840. For many, the mountain carries deep symbolic meaning. According to biblical tradition, it is the resting place of Noah's Ark. Over the past century, multiple expeditions have searched the upper slopes for remains of the vessel, though no confirmed evidence has ever been found. Climbing the mountain requires a multi-day trek. The air thins quickly above 4,000 meters, around 13,000 feet, and even in summer, snow and ice remain near the summit. But the story here is not only about height or legend, it's about borders. The mountain sits near the meeting point of Turkey, Armenia, and Iran, a reminder of how geography shapes identity. And not far from its shadow lies the remains of a medieval city that was once known as the City of 1,001 Churches. Today, it is quiet, but around the 10th century, Ani was one of the largest cities in the region, with an estimated population of over 100,000 people. Located along important trade routes, it became the capital of the Armenian kingdom and flourished with cathedrals, palaces, and fortified walls stretching several kilometers, nearly 2 miles around the city. The cathedral, completed in 1001 AD, features pointed arches that some historians believe influenced early Gothic architecture in Europe. Earthquakes, invasions, and shifting trade routes gradually led to its decline. By the 14th century, much of the city was abandoned. Today, the ruins stand on a windswept plateau near a deep gorge marking the modern border. The silence is striking. Crumbling churches, empty streets, fragments of frescoes, all reminders of a city that once rivaled major capitals. But the story of monumental architecture carved into rock doesn't end here, because far to the north, clinging to a sheer cliff face above a forested valley, another structure defies gravity itself. It looks impossible. Sümela Monastery clings to a vertical cliff nearly 300 meters, about 1,000 feet, above a forested valley in northern Turkey. Built into solid rock, it seems suspended between earth and sky. The monastery was founded in the 4th century AD by Greek Orthodox monks who chose this remote location for isolation and protection. Over time, additional chapels, kitchens, student rooms, and a library were carved into the cliff face. Reaching the monastery once required a steep climb along narrow paths. Today, visitors still hike the final stretch through dense forest, which makes the first glimpse of the complex even more dramatic. Standing on the terrace, you realize the builders were not just seeking safety, they were making a statement. And just a few hours inland, another city also chose its setting carefully, this time not on a cliff, but along a river that once carried the tombs of kings. It's the tombs that catch your eye first. Carved directly into a rock face above the Yeşilırmak River, these monumental burial chambers date back to the 3rd century BC, when Amasya was the capital of the Kingdom of Pontus. The tombs were built high above the city to display royal power, visible from almost anywhere below. The city itself sits in a narrow valley, its traditional wooden Ottoman houses lining the riverbank in neat rows. Many of them date to the 19th century and feature overhanging upper floors designed to maximize space while keeping streets shaded during summer. Amasya also played an important role in Ottoman history. Several future sultans were educated here as provincial governors before ascending the throne. It's a place where layers of political power are still visible in architecture. And when evening falls, the illuminated tombs reflect in the river, connecting past and present in a single view. But not far to the west, another town preserved a different chapter of Ottoman life. Not royal, but commercial. At first glance, it feels untouched by time. Safranbolu is known for its exceptionally well-preserved Ottoman houses, many built between the 17th and 19th centuries. Over 1,000 traditional wooden homes still stand here, earning the town UNESCO World Heritage status. These houses were designed with surprising sophistication. Thick stone lower walls provided insulation, while upper wooden levels allowed flexibility during earthquakes. The town thrived as a stop along trade routes, especially during the height of caravan commerce. Its name comes from saffron, a valuable spice once cultivated in the region. Walking through its narrow cobbled streets, you can see restored caravanserais, mosques, bathhouses, and small artisan workshops. It offers a rare glimpse into everyday Ottoman urban life, not imperial capitals, but merchant towns built on trade and craftsmanship. And soon, that sense of layered history will expand dramatically, because ahead lies a city that once ruled empires and still straddles two continents at once. No other city in the world has been the capital of three major empires. Istanbul began as Byzantium, became Constantinople, and later the heart of the Ottoman Empire. For more than 1,500 years, it stood at the center of political and religious power. Its skyline tells the story. The Hagia Sophia, completed in 537 AD, was once the largest cathedral in the world. Its dome rises 55 meters, about 180 feet, above the floor, an engineering achievement that stunned architects for centuries. Across the city, the Blue Mosque displays 6 minarets and more than 20,000 hand-painted Iznik tiles inside. Beneath the streets lies the Basilica Cistern, built in the 6th century to store water for the Great Palace. Its forest of 336 marble columns stretches across an underground chamber large enough to hold 80,000 cubic meters of water, over 21 million gallons. Ferries cross between Europe and Asia every day in under 20 minutes. But long before ferries and domes, another story captured the world's imagination, one of war, legend, and a wooden horse. For centuries, many believed it was only a myth. The story of the Trojan War, told in Homer's Iliad, described a powerful city besieged for 10 years before falling to a trick involving a giant wooden horse. For generations, scholars debated whether Troy ever truly existed. In the 19th century, excavations revealed something remarkable. Beneath layers of earth were the remains of not one city, but multiple cities built on top of each other. At least 9 major settlement layers have been identified, dating back more than 4,000 years. The ancient walls, some made from massive limestone blocks, still stand several meters high. Archaeologists believe one of these layers, known as Troy VII, may correspond to the period described in the epic. Whether the war happened exactly as told is still debated, but the city was real, and it controlled a strategic route between the Aegean Sea and the Black Sea, making it a valuable prize long before literature immortalized it. Yet further south, another ancient center rose, not famous for legend, but for learning, medicine, and one of the steepest theaters ever built. It rises dramatically above the modern town below. Pergamon was once one of the most powerful cities of the Hellenistic world. In the 2nd century BC, it rivaled Alexandria as a center of knowledge. Its library reportedly held over 200,000 scrolls, making it one of the largest collections of the ancient world. The city's Acropolis sits on a steep hill, nearly 300 meters, about 1,000 feet above the surrounding plain. At the top stands a theater carved directly into the slope, with a seating capacity of around 10,000 spectators. The incline is so sharp that from the highest row, the drop feels almost vertical. Pergamon was also home to one of the most famous medical centers of antiquity. Patients came from across the region seeking treatments that included dream therapy, herbal remedies, and early surgical procedures. The name parchment is believed to derive from this city, where treated animal skins were developed as a writing material after papyrus imports were restricted. But the legacy of classical cities does not end here, because further along the Aegean coast, another ancient settlement would grow into one of the most impressive urban centers of the Roman world. Ephesus was once one of the largest cities in the Roman Empire, with a population estimated at over 200,000 people. Walking along its marble-paved streets, you can still see deep grooves carved by chariot wheels nearly 2,000 years ago. The Library of Celsus is its most iconic structure. Completed in 135 AD, its facade once held around 12,000 scrolls and was designed to impress. The columns, statues, and intricate carvings were carefully positioned to create the illusion of greater height. But Ephesus was not only a political center, it was also home to the Temple of Artemis, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Though little remains of it today, historical accounts describe a temple larger than a football field, over 110 meters long, nearly 360 feet, supported by 127 massive columns. The city also had advanced infrastructure: public toilets connected to running water, a large amphitheater seating around 25,000 people, and a complex sewer system. Yet as trade routes shifted and its harbor gradually filled with silt, the city declined. And along the nearby coastline, a different kind of attraction began to draw attention: not ruins, but wind and water. Here, the focus shifts from stone to sea. Çeşme sits on the Aegean coast, known for its clear turquoise water and steady winds that attract windsurfers from around the world. In some areas, the sea remains shallow for dozens of meters, nearly 100 feet, making it ideal for both beginners and professionals. But the town's history goes back centuries. Its 16th century castle was built by the Ottomans to defend against naval attacks. Just offshore lies the site of the 1770 Battle of Çeşme, where the Russian Navy destroyed much of the Ottoman fleet. Thermal springs also bubble up in the area, and locals have used them for generations, believing the mineral-rich waters help with skin conditions and joint pain. Yet not far inland, the landscape transforms completely, because instead of wind and salt water, the next site looks like frozen waterfalls, bright white and cascading down a hillside. It almost looks like snow, but it isn't. Pamukkale means cotton castle in Turkish, and the name makes sense the moment you see it. The bright white terraces are formed by calcium-rich thermal waters flowing down the hillside and hardening into travertine over thousands of years. The site stretches for about 2.7 kilometers, nearly 1.7 miles, and the terraces rise up to 160 meters, roughly 520 feet above the surrounding plain. The water emerging from underground springs maintains a temperature of around 35 degrees Celsius, about 95 degrees Fahrenheit, even in winter. Visitors can walk barefoot through shallow pools filled with warm mineral water, though access is carefully controlled to protect the fragile formations. For centuries, people believed these waters had healing properties. And just above these terraces, another ancient city once stood, where temples and theaters overlooked the glowing white landscape below. Hierapolis was founded in the 2nd century BC, directly above thermal springs that still flow today. The Romans transformed it into a spa city, attracting visitors seeking cures for everything from joint pain to skin diseases. The main street stretches nearly 1 kilometer, about 0.6 miles, lined with columns, baths, and temples. Its theater, built in the 2nd century AD, could seat around 12,000 spectators and remains remarkably well preserved, with detailed reliefs still visible on the stage facade. But one feature stands out: the plutonium, a small cave emitting toxic carbon dioxide gas, was considered sacred in antiquity. Priests demonstrated their divine protection by entering the chamber unharmed, while small animals brought inside quickly suffocated. Modern scientists later confirmed the gas concentration near the cave floor was lethal. Even today, bubbles rise in nearby thermal pools, reminding visitors that geological forces remain active beneath the surface. Yet the atmosphere changes dramatically as the coastline comes back into view, this time marked by whitewashed houses and a fortress overlooking a deep blue harbor. It feels Mediterranean, but its history runs deep. Bodrum stands on the site of ancient Halicarnassus, once home to the Mausoleum of Mausolus, one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. The structure was so grand that the word mausoleum itself comes from his name. Although the original monument no longer stands, parts of its stone were later used to build the Castle of St. Peter in the 15th century. The fortress still dominates the harbor, its towers constructed by the Knights of St. John. The marina today is filled with sleek yachts and traditional wooden goulets, reflecting Bodrum's transformation into a major sailing destination. Underwater archaeology also plays a role here. The Museum of Underwater Archaeology displays shipwreck artifacts dating back over 3,000 years, including cargo from Bronze Age trade routes. Summer temperatures regularly reach 35 degrees Celsius, about 95 degrees Fahrenheit, drawing visitors to its beaches and coves. But further east along the coast, the scenery becomes even more dramatic, where steep mountains drop sharply into a lagoon so blue it almost looks unreal. The color is what people remember. Just south of the town of Fethiye lies one of the most photographed coastlines in Turkey. Ölüdeniz Lagoon is famous for its intense turquoise water, created by fine white sand in calm, shallow conditions protected by a natural sandbar. The name means Dead Sea, not because of salt, but because the water remains unusually still even during strong winds. Just above the lagoon rises Babadağ Mountain, standing at 1,969 meters, about 6,460 feet. It is considered one of the best paragliding sites in the world. On clear days, dozens of paragliders launch from the summit, drifting slowly toward the beach below. Back in Fethiye itself, Lycian rock tombs carved into the cliffs overlook the town. The most famous, the Tomb of Amintas, dates to the 4th century BC and was carved to resemble a small temple, complete with columns and decorative reliefs. The surrounding coastline is dotted with hidden coves accessible only by boat, and the famous Lycian Way hiking trail begins near here, stretching roughly 540 kilometers, about 335 miles along the Mediterranean. But the next stop reveals something even older. A vast stretch of sand once connected to one of the most important cities of the ancient Lycian world. Patara Beach stretches for about 18 kilometers, nearly 11 miles, making it one of the longest beaches in Turkey. The dunes shift with the wind, and large sections remain undeveloped to protect nesting sites of the endangered loggerhead sea turtle. But just behind the beach lies something unexpected. Patara was once a major Lycian city and an important Roman port. It is believed to be the birthplace of Saint Nicholas, the historical figure who later inspired the legend of Santa Claus. The ancient city included a parliament building where representatives of the Lycian League gathered, one of the earliest known examples of a democratic federation. The Roman theater could hold thousands of spectators, and the city's lighthouse, originally built in 64 AD, is one of the oldest known lighthouses in the world. Over time, shifting sands and silting rivers changed the coastline, cutting the city off from the sea and contributing to its decline. Today, ruins rise quietly from the dunes. But further along the coast, the atmosphere shifts again, from wide-open sands to narrow streets and a harbor framed by steep cliffs. Kaş is built around a natural harbor, with whitewashed houses climbing up the hillside and balconies covered in bougainvillea. What sets it apart is not scale, but clarity, especially underwater. The waters here are known for visibility that can exceed 30 meters, nearly 100 feet, making it one of Turkey's top diving destinations. Beneath the surface lie shipwrecks, ancient anchors, and even the remains of a World War II-era aircraft. On land, a well-preserved Hellenistic theater overlooks the sea, seating around 4,000 people. It is modest compared to larger Roman venues, but its setting at sunset makes it unforgettable. Just offshore sits the Greek island of Castellarizo, visible from the harbor and reachable by boat in under 30 minutes. Kaş balances history and modern life without overwhelming either. But not far away, the coastline widens dramatically, giving way to a city that blends waterfalls, Roman gates, and high-rise hotels in a single frame. It's both ancient and modern at the same time. Antalya sits along a wide bay backed by the Taurus Mountains. Its old town, known as Kaleiçi, preserves narrow cobbled streets and Ottoman-era houses built inside Roman walls. The most striking ancient landmark is Hadrian's Gate, constructed in 130 AD to honor the Roman emperor's visit. Its marble arches still stand nearly 2,000 years later. Just outside the historic center, Dudin waterfalls plunge about 40 meters, roughly 130 feet, directly into the Mediterranean Sea, creating one of the rare coastal waterfalls in the region. Today, Antalya is also a major tourism hub, with long beaches stretching for kilometers in summer temperatures, frequently exceeding 35 degrees Celsius, about 95 degrees Fahrenheit. It serves as a gateway to the Turkish Riviera, combining resort life with deep history. And further east along this coastline, a rocky peninsula crowned by a medieval fortress rises above the sea, marking the final chapter of this journey. Alanya is defined by its dramatic peninsula, crowned by a medieval fortress that stretches for nearly 6 kilometers, about 3.7 miles, along stone walls wrapping around the cliffs. The fortifications were expanded in the 13th century under the Seljuk Sultan Alaaeddin Keykubat I, who transformed the city into a major naval base. The Red Tower, standing 33 meters, around 108 feet high, guarded the harbor and remains one of the best preserved Seljuk military structures in the country. Built from red brick, it was designed to control access to the port and protect shipyards that once constructed fleets for Mediterranean trade and defense. Below the fortress, Cleopatra Beach extends along the western side of the peninsula. According to local legend, the sand was brought from Egypt as a gift to Cleopatra, though the unique grain structure is more likely the result of natural geological processes. Alanya blends fortress walls, beaches, caves, and modern resort life in a single compact setting. And after crossing mountains, plateaus, ancient cities, royal tombs, monasteries, harbors, and hidden valleys, this coastline feels like a fitting final view. Because in this country, history is never far from the sea.